My parents told me there wouldn't be enough space for me at the family retreat, so I did this. I'm Emily Carter. I'm 34, and last month I got the same message I've received every year. Sorry, sweetie. There just isn't enough room for you at the Tahoe retreat this year. But this time, something inside me snapped. They made space for 120 people, siblings, in-laws, cousins, even friends of friends. Everyone except me. And no, it wasn't about space. It was about me never fitting into the version of family they wanted. So I decided I'd stop waiting for a seat at their table and I'd build my own. Stick around because what happened next changed everything. And if you've ever felt like the forgotten one in your family, this story is for you. Growing up, the Tahoe retreat was magic. My grandparents, Eleanor and Robert Carter, bought the lakefront property when I was just 6. It was their dream, their sanctuary, and they made it ours too. I still remember running barefoot across the wooden dock, the laughter of my siblings echoing off the water. My grandfather would guide treasure hunts across 10 wooded acres. My sisters helped Grandma prepare huge family meals in the open concept kitchen. Everyone had a role. And mine was beside Grandpa sketching the pine-covered mountains in my little notebook. He was the first one who saw it, my gift. "You see the world differently, Emily," he'd whisper. He built me a tiny easel on the porch and sat with me for hours while I drew. "Your art will take you places," he said. "Don't ever let anyone tell you it's not a worthy path. I chose art, not business, not law, not the real careers my parents dreamed of. After high school, I turned down the business track they pushed and enrolled in art school. Grandpa was proud. But Mom, she smiled politely, then never brought it up again. Dad. He was blunt. Artists don't pay mortgages, Emily. At every holiday dinner, he bragged about my siblings Jake in finance, Amanda married to a plastic surgeon, Blake and Brian both lawyers. Me, Emily's still doing her art thing. The words stung more each year, but I worked hard. While others partied after graduation, I built my portfolio. I freelanced, pitched clients, and slowly, quietly, I built a 6-figure design studio from scratch. But no matter how much I grew, it was never enough for them. My client list grew: tech startups, luxury brands, international campaigns. I spoke at design conferences, won awards, hired a team. But every year, the Tahoe retreat message came just the same. "Sorry, sweetie. Keeping it small this year. No room." Meanwhile, I saw the photos online. Dozens of relatives smiling around the fire pit. Cousins I hadn't seen in years. Family friends. Even Dad's old college roommate and his wife. 120 people. But not me. I remember that night lying in bed, phone still glowing, heart heavy. Maybe they really just want to keep it immediate family, I told myself. But I was lying to myself, because deep down I knew the truth. I wasn't left out by accident. I was excluded on purpose. I called Grace, my best friend from art school, my lifeline. The words poured out. They did it again, said there wasn't space. Silence on the line. Then Grace gently, "Emily, that's not a lack of space. That's a message." I blinked, stunned. "A message?" "Yes," she said. "They're punishing you for not living the life they wanted." And just like that, it clicked. This wasn't about a full guest list. This was about control, about shame. My choices made them uncomfortable, so they erased me. Grace didn't let me spiral. "You don't need to beg for a seat anymore," she said. "You're a creator. So create. Build something they can't ignore." And that's when it began. The idea that would change everything. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Grace's words. "You're a creator, so create." So I grabbed my sketch pad, not for a client, not for a campaign, for me. I started sketching ideas for a retreat, not a networking event, a real retreat for creatives, for misfits, for people like me. A space to heal, connect, share. No gatekeeping, no family hierarchy, just art, honesty, and community. The more I drew, the more it made sense. If they wouldn't make space for me, I'd make space for others like me. By sunrise, I had a name, Creative Rising. I didn't know how. I didn't have a plan yet, but I had something stronger, a purpose. I started looking at properties, not just anywhere, near Tahoe, right next to where my family gathers every summer. It felt bold, maybe too bold, But when I saw the listing Emerald Ridge Estate, 6 bedrooms, a private dock, massive wraparound deck, it looked like something out of a dream. And the week of availability, the exact same week as the family retreat. I hesitated. The price was steep. I'd saved up for a condo down payment. But this wasn't just real estate. It was a statement. I wired the deposit. My hands were shaking, but my heart solid. I wasn't crashing their retreat. I was building my own legacy right next door. I opened a blank doc, not for a work proposal, for a guest list. I wrote one name first, Grace, then Rachel, my event planner, client turned friend, then artists, designers, and past clients who'd become real community, people who said congrats when I launched my agency, not when are you getting a real job, I added. Heather, my only sibling who ever showed up to my exhibits. And Jake. He always seemed conflicted. Maybe this was a chance. With every name I typed, I felt it. I'm not alone. I never was. These people, they saw me. They respected me. Not because I fit into some perfect mold, but because I refused to. I got to work. Rachel helped me plan out a full itinerary: sunrise yoga, creative journaling, lakeside pottery. I booked a photographer, contacted local caterers. I designed a private website with a logo I hand drew on my iPad. The whole thing looked stunning. But late at night, when everything was quiet, doubt crept in. What if no one shows up? What if they think this is some sad overreaction to being left out? What if I just embarrass myself and drain my savings for nothing? My fingers hovered over the send invite button. My heart pounded. Then I heard Grace's voice in my head. You're not reacting, you're creating. I clicked send. The first RSVP came within hours. I'm in, Grace wrote, followed by 3 excited emojis. Then came Rachel's email. This retreat is going to change people's lives. Count me in as more than just planner. My inbox lit up like fireworks. A former client wrote, I've needed something like this. Can't wait. Even Heather texted, this looks incredible. Would love to join you instead of Tahoe this year. And Jake, he declined, but with kindness. Wish I could make it. Proud of what you're building, Em. For once, I wasn't chasing inclusion. I was attracting it from the right people. And deep down, I knew this is already worth it. I was finalizing the gift baskets. Locally made soap, mini wine bottles, handwritten notes for each guest. Everything was ready. Then my phone rang. Hi, this is Stephanie from Sage and Sprig Catering. My stomach dropped. No. They double booked. Couldn't serve the retreat. 5 days, 22 guests, no food. My knees buckled. I sat on the kitchen floor, surrounded by welcome baskets. Grace. I whispered into the phone, barely holding it together. I think this whole thing might fall apart. She didn't even hesitate. We're gonna fix this. I've got a call to make. And just like that, hope blinked back on. A few hours later, Grace called back. You're not going to believe this. She'd found Sophia a personal chef trained at the Culinary Institute of America. On sabbatical. Available. Intrigued. I sent her the original menu. She replied in minutes, let's elevate this. Her tweaks weren't just improvements. They turned meals into experiences. Suddenly, what felt like a disaster became an upgrade. And just like that, I had food. I had friends. I had a dream rebuilt stronger. The next morning, I packed up the car. Supplies, printouts, gift baskets, and a heart beating with both nerves and purpose. Emerald Bay Estate, I was on my way. As I turned onto the private drive, Emerald Bay Estate rose before me like something from a dream. Floor-to-ceiling windows glowing in the afternoon light, a wraparound deck that kissed the treetops, 6 bedrooms, seams, a gourmet kitchen, a private beach and dock. It was everything I couldn't have at the family retreat and everything I needed. The estate manager handed me the keys. All yours for the week. Alone inside the great room, I stood by the window. The lake shimmered below, peaceful and powerful. This is mine, I whispered, not in ownership, but in intention. I had created a space where I belonged, and I was ready to fill it with people who truly saw me. I spent the afternoon preparing every corner, fresh-cut flowers in glass jars just like Grandma Eleanor used to do, handmade welcome cards tucked into each gift basket, and in Heather's basket, a photo of us as kids painting on Grandpa's porch. My phone buzzed. On our way, Grace texted, 15 minutes later, her old Volvo pulled into the driveway, followed by Troy and his partner David. They stepped out, looked around, and froze. Emily Grace whispered, "This is magical." I smiled. "It's home for a while." As more guests arrived, laughter filled the rooms, hugs, stories, sparkling eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt completely held. By sunset, all 22 guests had arrived. The lights above the long deck table twinkled as the lake shimmered in the distance. Sophia, our chef, plated the final course, locally sourced salmon, roasted golden beets, a citrus glaze that caught the light. Every dish felt intentional, personal, like art. We gathered at the table, glasses clinked, laughter flowed. I stood up, heart pounding. "Thank you," I said, "for being here, for seeing me, for helping me build something beautiful. A silence not empty but full of meaning." Then cheers, applause. Troy raised his glass to Emily for making a space where everyone feels they belong. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just healing, I was leading. The sun rose over Lake Tahoe, casting soft gold across the deck. David, our certified yoga instructor, guided us through a gentle flow. The mountain air was crisp, the silence sacred. As we moved through poses, I felt something in my chest loosen. I belonged here. After yoga came a breakfast of fresh berries, baked goods, and strong coffee. Laughter buzzed around the table, easy, unforced. Then the creative sessions began. Troy led a nature photography hike. Miranda set up her pottery wheel on the back patio. Grace spread notebooks and watercolor sets under pine trees for her journaling workshop. As I walked between sessions, checking in with each group, I kept hearing the same word. This feels like freedom. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the outsider. I felt like the anchor. I hadn't touched my phone in hours, but when I finally checked it, dozens of notifications, stories, posts, reels. Guests had begun sharing their retreat experience online, tagging me, tagging the location, and the messages followed. From Blake, "Wait, what is this? That house looks incredible." From Amanda, "Is Heather seriously staying with you instead of attending the family retreat?" From Mom, "Hope you're enjoying your summer, sweetheart. Anything special planned this week?" I didn't respond. Instead, I posted a photo of a sunset over the lake, guests laughing on the dock. Caption, "Let the creative souls retreat begin." Aha rising from the margins, they would see it. They would know. This time, I wasn't hiding. My phone rang again. Mom lit up the screen. I stared at it, let it go to voicemail. She called again, and again. On the third call I picked up, Emily, her voice was sharp, low, like a storm about to break. "Where exactly are you, Lake Tahoe?" "You're at our family retreat number. I'm at my own. I created a retreat for creatives. Friends. Colleagues." Silence. Then Eleanor was supposed to arrive at the cabin yesterday. "She's missing." I smiled slightly. "She's here. With me." "Excuse me." She saw the photos online. She said this looked more meaningful. I could hear her inhale sharply, and I didn't flinch. I found her sitting on the edge of the dock, the lake stretching wide and still behind her. Aunt Eleanor, 84 years old, world traveler, journalist, the family's original rebel. "I saw the photos on Instagram," she said without looking at me. "I was supposed to be at your parents' retreat. But this," she turned to me, eyes twinkling. "This looked far more interesting." We sat there in silence for a while. Then she said softly, "Robert and Eleanor would be proud, not just because of this house, this event, but because you didn't shrink. You lived as you are." I felt my throat tighten. "They always saw your gift," she whispered. "They were heartbroken when others didn't." That night, her words wrapped around me like the lake breeze. Gentle, unshakable, true. A silver Mercedes pulled up the winding drive. My stomach dropped. Dad stepped out first, then Mom. Perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. I met them outside before they could step into the house. "Emily," Mom said, glancing around. "What is going on here?" "I'm hosting a creative retreat," I said calmly, "because I wasn't welcome at yours." Dad's face flushed. "We told you it was a space issue." I didn't raise my voice. "You invited 118 people. You rented extra houses. Don't pretend this was about space." Their silence confirmed it. "You're welcome to stay for dinner," I added steady, "as guests, not as parents coming to scold their daughter." For once, they had no words. The dinner table stretched across the deck, fairy lights dancing overhead, Plates of locally sourced food, laughter, clinking glasses. Mom and Dad sat at one end, stiff quiet out of place, but then Grace leaned over to them. Emily's design studio won an award last spring, she said, smiling. Her work with emerging artists is inspiring. I saw Mom's eyebrow lift. Rachel chimed in about our workshops. Troy passed them photos he took that day. They listened, they nodded, and for the first time, they looked around, really looked, at what I had built, at the people who chose to be here because of who I was, not what I did. It wasn't warmth yet, but it wasn't cold anymore. The next morning, my phone was buzzing. Texts, dozens. Brian saw your photos. Looks amazing. What is this thing, Amanda? Why is Heather with you and not with us, Lily? Wait, where are you? Is everything okay? I didn't answer immediately. For years, I had been the one left wondering, asking, rationalizing. Now they were on the outside. But I didn't feel vindictive, just calm. This retreat wasn't built to provoke them. It was built to heal me. But the irony wasn't lost on me that those who had always been included were now the ones questioning their place. We had just returned from the morning boat ride when I saw her, standing at the end of the dock, sun hat in hand, lips curved in a sly smile. Aunt Eleanor, my voice caught. She waved elegant even at 84. Saw your retreat on Instagram. Decided to crash it, she said, unbothered. I was supposed to be at the family one. But this looked like it had a soul. Aunt Eleanor was my grandmother's sister, a former journalist and adventurer. The only adult who ever told me, you see the world differently, and that's your magic. That day, she unpacked a small bag and took the room with the best view. Just like that, my retreat gained a soul from the past one that saw me. That night, most guests had gone to bed. The lake was still silver under the moonlight. I sat on the deck with Aunt Eleanor, a glass of her favorite scotch in hand. She leaned back, eyes on the stars. Your grandparents would be proud of you, Emily, she said quietly. I swallowed hard. Even after I didn't go into business, after I disappointed the family, she turned to me, eyes full of truth. They saw your fire, your gift. They knew this world wasn't built for girls like you, so they planted a place Tahoe, hoping one day you'd reclaim it. I didn't cry, I just nodded. For the first time in years, I believed it. Maybe I wasn't the black sheep. Maybe I was always meant to lead the flock in a new direction. The next afternoon, as we gathered for lunch, my phone lit up Mom. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. On the third ring, I sighed and stepped away. Emily, where are you? She asked sharp. Your Aunt Eleanor didn't show up at the retreat. Did she contact you? She's here. With me, I said calmly. Silence. What do you mean, with you? She saw my post and decided this was worth showing up for. Her voice wavered. But we told you there wasn't enough space. You told me that while inviting 118 people and renting extra properties, I said voice steady. Another pause. Your father and I are driving up. We need to talk. In person. For the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt ready. An hour later, their silver Mercedes pulled into the gravel drive of Emerald Bay Estate. I met them outside. I didn't want them barging in, disrupting the peace I'd spent weeks building. Mom stepped out first, eyes scanning the estate, arms crossed. Dad followed, adjusting his blazer like he was walking into a shareholders meeting. What exactly is going on here, Emily? Mom asked. I'm hosting a creative retreat, I said. Calm. For people who see me, support me. Dad frowned. You invited 22 people and rented this estate. Yes. Since there wasn't enough space for me at your gathering, they looked at each other speechless. You're welcome to join us for dinner, I added. As guests, not as my parents here to correct me. I turned, walked toward the house. For once, they had to follow me. That evening, my parents joined the long wooden table under soft string lights on the lakefront deck. The air was scented with rosemary and grilled peaches. Sophia plated the main course, a seared duck breast with cherry compote. Around them sat photographers, designers, authors, people they'd never have imagined I was connected to. I watched Mom stiffen as Grace complimented my design firm. Dad stayed mostly silent, eyes scanning, processing. Halfway through dinner, he leaned toward me. This is impressive, Emily. Not warm, not emotional, but from Richard Collins, it was a breakthrough. I nodded once. Thank you. For the rest of the meal, they listened more than they spoke. For once, they didn't dominate the room. They witnessed it. The morning after the dinner, my phone buzzed nonstop. First came Blake. That place looks amazing. What even is this retreat? Then Brian. Saw your post. Looks great. Would have been nice to get an invite. Amanda texted too. Why is Heather with you and not at the Tahoe retreat? Mom's asking. I didn't reply. Not right away. I was busy organizing a sunrise yoga session. Later during breakfast, Heather leaned in. Mom asked if I knew about this. I said yes, and that I chose to be here. Her voice was calm, steady. I don't regret it, she added. For the first time, I wasn't the only one questioning the way things had always been. That was new. That afternoon, we returned from a boat ride across the lake. As we stepped onto the dock, I saw her, an elegant older woman with a silk scarf and a cane. I froze. Aunt Eleanor, she smiled. I saw it on Instagram. Figured this would be more interesting than Tahoe. My great aunt. 84 years old, fiercely independent, a former journalist who once covered revolutions and refugee camps. She hugged me tightly. Your grandparents would be proud, Emily. Of this. Of you. That night, we sat under the stars sipping her favorite scotch. Richard and Patricia never understood creativity, she said. But your grandparents did, and so do I. Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen. The next morning, my phone lit up with a call. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. On the third call, I picked up. Emily, where exactly are you? Her voice was sharp, controlled. Aunt Eleanor was supposed to arrive at the Tahoe retreat yesterday. She's not here. I answered calmly. She's here, with me. Silence. Here? Where is here? I'm hosting my own retreat this week. Emily, we told you there wasn't enough space. You invited 118 people, I said quietly, and rented extra properties. You made space for everyone but me. Another long pause. Your father and I are coming to talk. She hung up. An hour later, their silver Mercedes pulled into the gravel drive of Emerald Bay Estate. I met them outside. I didn't want them barging in, disrupting the peace I'd spent weeks building. Mom stepped out first, eyes scanning the estate, arms crossed. Dad followed, adjusting his blazer like he was walking into a shareholders meeting. What exactly is going on here, Emily? Mom asked. I'm hosting a creative retreat, I said. Calm. For people who see me, support me. Dad frowned. You invited 22 people and rented this estate. Yes. Since there wasn't enough space for me at your gathering, they looked at each other speechless. You're welcome to join us for dinner, I added. As guests, not as my parents here to correct me. I turned, walked toward the house. For once, they had to follow me. That evening, my parents joined the long wooden table under soft string lights on the lakefront deck. The air was scented with rosemary and grilled peaches. Sophia plated the main course, a seared duck breast with cherry compote. Around them sat photographers, designers, authors, people they'd never have imagined I was connected to. I watched Mom stiffen as Grace complimented my design firm. Dad stayed mostly silent, eyes scanning, processing. Halfway through dinner, he leaned toward me. This is impressive, Emily. Not warm, not emotional, but from Richard Collins, it was a breakthrough. I nodded once. Thank you. For the rest of the meal, they listened more than they spoke. For once, they didn't dominate the room. They witnessed it. The morning after the dinner, my phone buzzed nonstop. First came Blake. That place looks amazing. What even is this retreat? Then Brian. Saw your post. Looks great. Would have been nice to get an invite. Amanda texted too. Why is Heather with you and not at the Tahoe retreat? Mom's asking. I didn't reply. Not right away. I was busy organizing a sunrise yoga session. Later during breakfast, Heather leaned in. Mom asked if I knew about this. I said yes, and that I chose to be here. Her voice was calm, steady. I don't regret it, she added. For the first time, I wasn't the only one questioning the way things had always been. That was new. That afternoon, we returned from a boat ride across the lake. As we stepped onto the dock, I saw her, an elegant older woman with a silk scarf and a cane. I froze. Aunt Eleanor, she smiled. I saw it on Instagram. Figured this would be more interesting than Tahoe. My great aunt. 84 years old, fiercely independent, a former journalist who once covered revolutions and refugee camps. She hugged me tightly. Your grandparents would be proud, Emily. Of this. Of you. That night, we sat under the stars sipping her favorite scotch. Richard and Patricia never understood creativity, she said, but your grandparents did, and so do I. Her words wrapped around me like a blanket. For the first time in years, I felt truly seen. The next morning, my phone lit up with a call. Mom, I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. On the third call, I picked up. Emily, where exactly are you? Her voice was sharp, controlled. Aunt Eleanor was supposed to arrive at the Tahoe retreat yesterday. She's not here. I answered calmly. She's here, with me. Silence. Here? Where is here? I'm hosting my own retreat this week. Emily, we told you there wasn't enough space. You invited 118 people, I said quietly, and rented extra properties. You made space for everyone but me. Another long pause. Your father and I are coming to talk. She hung up. Their Mercedes pulled into the driveway an hour later. I met them outside, not wanting to disrupt the watercolor workshop happening in the great room. Mom's eyes scanned the estate, lips pursed. What exactly is going on here, Emily? A creative retreat for people who see me, value me. Dad crossed his arms. We said there wasn't space for one more person. Don't I cut in? You invited 118 people, rented extra homes. Please, don't insult my intelligence. Their faces shifted somewhere between guilt and defensiveness. You're always working, Mom said. We thought that my work doesn't matter, I asked, keeping my voice level. That I don't matter, I paused. You're welcome to stay for dinner tonight as guests, not parents here to criticize me. I turned to walk back inside. Emily, Dad called. I stopped, didn't turn around. He hesitated, then said something I hadn't heard from him in years. This is impressive. What you've built here, it wasn't an apology. But coming from Richard Collins, that sentence alone was monumental. I nodded once, not trusting my voice, and went back inside. My friends were still gathered around the ceramic wheels, laughing as Miranda showed them how to center the clay. This retreat, my retreat, was living, breathing proof of my value. They saw it. Maybe, just maybe, my parents were starting to. That evening, the table was set under string lights on the deck. 22 guests, one long table. Sophia plated roasted local vegetables and seared salmon like artwork. I glanced at my parents, seated at the far end, stiff at first, unsure of how to blend in. But then they listened. Listened as my friends shared stories about our work together, how my design firm had helped launch startups, how I mentored young creatives, how this retreat for many had already shifted something deep within them. Dad sipped his wine silently. Mom's expression softened as Grace spoke about how I'd lifted her out of a dark time by pushing her back to the sketchbook. For the first time in a long time, my parents heard about me from voices they couldn't ignore. As guests lingered over dessert, I walked my parents to their car. Mom paused before getting in. Emily, she said, adjusting her scarf the way she always did when nervous. Next year, we'll make sure there is space for you at the family retreat. I smiled, polite, controlled. Thank you, I said. But I didn't promise anything. I had created something of value on my own terms. I didn't need a place. I had built one. As they drove away, I watched their taillights disappear into the Tahoe dusk. That simple sentence from Mom, it wasn't everything. But it was something, and in families, sometimes something is a beginning. The next day, my phone lit up with messages. Brian saw your post. The place looks incredible. Was I supposed to be invited? Lily? I'm confused. You're in Tahoe, not with the family. Amanda, you know, this is hurting Mom and Dad, right? Jake's message was quieter. I get it, Em. I don't think the family's been fair to you. I hope this gave you some peace. And then came Blake, the golden twin. I told them I needed a break from the chaos. But truth, I wanted to see what you built. He was on his way. I stared at his message, stunned. The brother who had once built blanket forts with me was choosing to walk into my world. Blake arrived just before dinner. He stepped out of his car, dressed casually, no suit, no mask. Wow, he said, eyes scanning the house, the lake view, the group gathering on the deck. This is amazing, Em. I hadn't heard him call me that in years. I gave him the tour, studio corners, pottery wheels, the boathouse turned creative lab. You did this, he asked, awe settling in. With help, I smiled. That night, Blake sat at the long dinner table, wedged between a photographer and a ceramicist, laughing. I watched him come alive not as dad's lawyer son, but as the curious, wide eyed kid I used to build Lego cities with. Maybe, just maybe, not all bridges were burned. On the final night, we gathered in a circle in the great room. Cushioned soft lights and the crackle of a fire in the background. Each guest took a turn sharing what this retreat had meant to them. Grace spoke of rekindling joy in creating. Troy shared he hadn't felt this alive in years. Miranda got teary. I'd forgotten what it felt like to be seen as more than just a title. When it came to me, I hesitated. I created this because I was tired of waiting to be included, I said. But what I gained was something bigger than belonging. I found my voice. Around that circle, I didn't feel like the outcast anymore. I felt like the builder of space, of safety, of truth. Just as we were wrapping up breakfast the next morning, a sleek black SUV pulled into the driveway. My parents stepped out. Mom clutched her purse like a shield. Dad had that fixed, unreadable face. We thought we'd help you clean up, Mom offered, voice too casual. It's all handled, I said gently. Amanda trailed behind them, trying to look anywhere but at me. Emily, Mom started. You made your father and me feel shut out. I stayed silent. Dad looked around at the laughter from the art deck, the quiet buzz of creativity. This is impressive, he admitted. Different, but impressive. You're welcome to join us, I said as guests. Not parents here to scold or manage me, just people willing to witness something different. For once, they didn't argue. That evening, as the sun dipped below the lake, my parents joined us for dinner. They sat stiffly at first, unfamiliar in a world they didn't create. But as my friends shared stories, as laughter floated in the air, something softened. My mom even asked Miranda about her pottery. My dad asked me, "Do you do this often?" "I hope to," I replied. After dinner, he pulled me aside. We didn't get it, but I think I'd like to try. No grand apology, just effort. For once, that was enough. I didn't create this to prove myself to them. I created it to remind myself I didn't need to. And in that space, I found peace. Not because they changed, but because I did. I used to think healing meant getting invited back, but now I know healing is realizing you never needed that invitation in the first place. I didn't just build a retreat, I built a space where people saw me, where art mattered, where connection wasn't earned, it was offered. And maybe, just maybe, that space helped my family see me too. If you've ever been told there's no room for you, don't shrink, don't beg. Build something so true to who you are, others will wish they'd made space sooner. If this story spoke to you, hit like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what space are you ready to build?